Hello and welcome to my first tutorial. In this tutorial we will be making a Lacy Slouch hat. This hat has this lacy trim to it, and the brim is woven, or it looks woven. It's worked in sections so you can easily adjust the length of the hat so you can have it as slouchy as you want or as non-slouchy as you want. It's worked from the brim up to the top, so it all comes together at the top where we sew it. In this tutorial I will be using US terms. You will need yarn in any weight. The hook size recommended by your yarn company, it'll be on the label. You need the hook size, the crochet hook that's recommended. You'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle to sew in ends, and a tape measure. You want to start by measuring your head. You measure your head based on how you want to wear the hat. For example, I like to wear my hat almost all the way around my head. So it goes around most of my forehead. It covers most of my forehead. It goes around, down, covers my ears, and down around the base of my neck, or the base of my skull to the top of my neck. And so that's where I measure my head to know what hat size I need. If you like to wear your hat differently, you like to wear it higher up, measure your head that way. So let's get started. The first thing you need to do is make a slip knot. There are dozens of ways to make slip knots. This is the easiest that I found. I just take the end of my yarn between my thumb and forefinger, and I grab the working yarn between my middle and ring finger. I grab a loop in my other hand and I twist that into a nice round loop. I fold that over my working yarn, and then I pick up that working yarn and draw it through and tighten it, and now I have a slip knot, easy as you please. If you're following along with the written pattern explains that all you need to do is chain 5 to the desired length, and the desired length will be the whatever measurement you came up with. And as long as that is a multiple of 5, it doesn't matter what size hat you make. For this tutorial I'm going to make a child size hat. In the written pattern, I've written it in the traditional way, which is that you do your chain separate from row 1. You do the chain first, and then in row 1 you single crochet in each chain. For the tutorial, I'm going to show you a foundation row single crochet. And in that foundation row single crochet, we're going to make the chain and the first row simultaneously. And in order to do that, this is how we start. You have your loop on your hook, just as you normally would. You yarn over and draw up a loop just like you would in a chain, to make a chain. Now you go back into that chain that you just made, insert your hook, yarn over and draw through that chain that you just made, and you have 2 loops on your hook. Now you yarn over and you draw through both of those loops. Now you take your hook and you insert it between the 2 loops that were just on your hook. You yarn over, you pull through so that there are 2 loops on your hook again, yarn over, pull through 2. We're going to do that again. Insert the hook between the 2 loops that were just on your hook, yarn over, pull through so that there are 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. And you continue on in multiples of 5 until you have the length of chain that you need for your hat. Okay, I have finished my foundation row single crochet, and I've measured it out to make sure that it's the length I need, and I have also counted to make sure that it's a multiple of 5. I had to get the length I need. Once I got that length I needed, I had 1 extra stitch. I had 76 instead of 75, and that's just my gauge, my hook. You may have a different number. So I pulled out that last stitch, the 76th stitch, so now I have 75. So now we're going to slip stitch to join. Oh, so by counting and measuring, you may find that you have to pull out 1 or 2 stitches, or you may have to add 1 or 2 stitches. It doesn't have to be an exact measurement. Just get as close as you can, and then any extra stitches you need to pull out or add, go ahead and do that. Okay, so slip stitch to join. We're going to slip stitch. We're going to slip our hook, insert our hook under that first stitch. We're going to yarn over, and we pull it through from under that stitch, and we immediately pull it through the loop on our hook. For this brim, we do not chain 1. If we chained 1, we would be adding an extra stitch every row, and we don't want to do that. We want to continue with the same number that we started with. So now we're going to do back post single crochet, and the way that you do that is you work from the back of your work. So I'm going to go to the back of my work and insert my hook right where I had just done my slip stitch. There's a post between each stitch. So these first 2 stitches have a post right in the middle. Going around to the back of my work, inserting my hook into that first stitch, I'm going to work around the first post and insert my hook into that second stitch. I'm going to yarn over and pull through, just pull through under that post. The first one for me is always tricky, and I'm not sure why. The other ones are easier. So now I have 2 loops on my hook. Now I'm going to yarn over and pull through both loops. I find my next post. I'm going to insert the hook through the stitch on the right side of the post. Going to work around the front and then insert my hook through the stitch on the left side of the post. Yarn over, pull under that post with 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. I'll show you that again. I find the next post, which is right there. I insert my hook from the back through the stitch that's to the right of the post. Now I work my hook around the front and into the stitch that's to the left of the post. Yarn over, pull the yarn under that post so that now there's 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops. And I'm going to continue this way until we get to the end. And I'm going to save the last 2 back post single crochets so that I can show you what they look like to show you where to work and where not to work. Okay, so I've worked my back post single crochet around each post in my row, and I am down to my last two. And I wanted to show you these because it can start to look confusing as to which is the last. Is this one the last? Is this one the last? Or is this one the last? This one is our starting point for each row. So we don't work around these at all. This one, especially when you're working your first row of back post or your second row of back post, it can look confusing as to whether or not this should be worked. And this should be worked. This is the last one. And then this is the second to the last one. And I wanted to show you that because I always get very confused about that with each row that I work. Not each row, I'm sorry, each hat that I work. I have to really think it through. So that's why I pointed it out. Okay, so now I've done my last back post single crochet for that row, and it's time for me to slip stitch to join into that first stitch. And just another reminder, don't chain one. We're going to go around, working through the back around that first post into that second stitch, wrap around, and just draw through under that first post so that there are 2 loops on your hook. Wrap over, yarn over, and pull through those 2 loops. And then continue around for as many rounds as you desire your brim to be. It can be as thin or as wide as you desire. Now I have my brim as wide as I want, and I have already slip stitched to join into that first stitch. So now, in order to start round 1 of the main body, I do need to chain 1. Now, rows 1, 3, and 5 of the main body of the hat are each increase rows. And you can do these increases anywhere in the row that you desire. If you do them all together, though, it will look uneven and wavy. In order to get an even look, it's important to spread your increases around your row fairly evenly. And so the pattern is written in such a way that the increases are spread around the row evenly. So all you do is continue with your regular crochet, or I'm sorry, start with your regular crochet. So I've got my chain 1 that counts as my first crochet. Insert into the next stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now on this 10th one, I'm going to add my first increase. So there are 2 single crochets in that 10th stitch. And I'm going to do this 4 more times around this rim in my first row. So I've done 4 increases, and I'm working on my last set of increases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. So in this 10th stitch, I'm going to add an increase, which is just adding a second stitch into that one stitch. And now I'm just going to single crochet in every stitch around the rest of my row. Okay, so now I have done all of my single crochets in that increase row. I'm going to slip stitch to join into my first stitch, chain 1, and then I'm just going to do standard single crochet in one single crochet in each stitch around for this row. Okay, so I just did a row of just straight single crochet. That's row 2. So now I'm on to row 3, which is another increase row, and I'm going to do it just like I did row 1. Every 10th stitch I'm going to add one stitch, and I'm going to do that 5 times, and then the rest of the row will just be one single crochet in each stitch. So this is round 3. Round 4 will be single crochet in each stitch, and round 5 will be another increase row. So for round 3, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the second stitch, and continue on. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to do a second single crochet in that 10th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a second single crochet in that 10th stitch. I'm going to do this 3 more times, and then one single crochet in each stitch around. Okay, so I have just finished my second increase row, which is row 3. Now I'm going to slip stitch to join to do row 4. And then once I'm done with row 4, I only have one more increase row, which is row 5. And you just work that the same way that you worked row 1 and row 3. And once you've done that, we'll meet back here, and then we'll start on the Lacy pattern. Okay, so now I've just finished my last decrease row, which is row 5. And now we're going to slip stitch to join and start in our Lacy pattern. When I slip stitch here, I'm only going to slip stitch into the front loop. And if you're confused about which loop, when you look at a stitch, we're looking at this stitch right here, and you see that round part on the side and it comes to a V. See how the stitch comes to a V? There's a part that's closest to you and a part that's farthest from you. The part closest to you is the front loop. So we're only going in between that space. We're going and only picking up that front loop. We're going to slip stitch to join into that front loop. We go back into that. Now we're going to start on the Lacy pattern. We go back into that same slip stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop. We go into the next stitch, working only in the front loop, yarn over, draw up a loop, next stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, next stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop. We have 5 loops on our hook. We want one more. Entering only that front loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, 6 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 6 loops. And now we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're going to repeat that with the next 5 stitches, going under only that front loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, working only with the front loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. That's 4 that we've gone in. This will be the 5th. I think I split my yarn. Just one second. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all of the loops, chain 5. Let's do that again. Working only with the front loop. Insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, that's 1. Insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, that's 2. Insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, that's 3. Insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, that's 4. Insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, that's 5. Yarn over, pull through all loops, yarn over, and chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to continue that around until the end. Okay, so now I've done that lacy pattern all the way around, and it's time for me to slip stitch to join. So where do I do that? Right here is the first part of our first pattern. So we don't slip stitch there. This is the last part of our last pattern. We have to fold the work over, and underneath this loop, which is the loop it looks like we should join into, underneath this loop there is another loop hiding back in there. That is where we slip stitch to join. This one right there, the one that's hidden. And now we're going to work 7B, row 7B. I'm sorry, 6B, not 7B. The original instructions were written as 7, but it is 6. The row we just worked was 6A. I forgot to mention that. So the reason they're labeled that way is that we actually work this round twice. We worked in the front loops, and now we're going to work in the back loops. And if you have a hard time finding the back loops, turn your work so that it faces you, and the back loops all become clear. So now, working only in the back loops, we're just going to single crochet. And we're going to do that all the way around. My yarn never splits. And I use these hooks all the time, but of course now that I'm on camera, my yarn is splitting. I'm sure people who make videos can understand. Again, if you're having a hard time figuring out which loop, turn your work towards you and the loops present themselves on this ridge. So we're going to continue that around, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so now I've worked in all my back loops, just a regular single crochet, and it's time for me to slip stitch to join. And the way I do that is just like I normally would. I go in under both loops of that first stitch. And then I chain one, and I continue with 4 more rows of single crochet. And once I've done those 4 rows, that'll be 5 rows total, including this back row. Then I repeat the lace row, and I will show you that one more time. So join me back here for a repeat of this row. Okay, so I finished my 5th row, and I'm ready to start that lacy pattern again. I need to slip stitch to join, which means I find that first loop, I go into the front loop only, yarn over, and pull through both. I go to start the lacy pattern again. I go back into that same loop I just slip stitched into and pull up a loop, and I go into the next 4 and do the same. And now I yarn over and draw through all 6 loops. And then I chain 5. And then I find that next stitch that hasn't been worked, and I go only into that front loop. And do that 5 times total for each one of these lacy stitches. If you want to help me name this stitch, please leave comments with names. Reasonable names, please. Be nice. And I'm going to continue this all the way around this row, and then I'm going to continue this set, starting with the back row of single crochet and going up to my 5th row, and then in row 6, starting only on my front loops, it's row 6A, I do the lacy pattern, and then I connect to join, and I work only in the back loops, and that's row 6B, working only in those back loops. And I do this for as long as I want my hat, so until I get the length of the hat that I want. So I will meet you back here when I have the length I want. Okay, so I have done the number of sets of this pattern that I'm going to do. I did a total of 3, and I ended on row 6B, which is the single crochet behind the lacy detail. So now what we're going to do is we're going to decrease in this row. I just chained 1. I'm going to do a single crochet in the next row, and then to do a decrease, it's very similar to how we did this stitch. We go under 1 stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, and instead of yarning over and pulling through 2, we go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. We now have 3 loops on our hook. We yarn over and draw through all 3. So what I did was just created 1 stitch from 2 stitches. Next 2 stitches are single crochet, and then the next 2 are a decrease. Go into that first stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, go into the next stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3 loops, and now we've just done our second decrease. Next 2 single crochets, next 2 stitches are single crochets, and then the next 2 are another decrease. So that's the pattern for the decrease rows. 2 single crochet and 1 decrease. 2 single crochet and 1 decrease all the way around. And then after I finish this decrease row, I will meet you back here. Okay, so I haven't slip stitched to join yet. I just finished my decrease row. I forgot to mention, it doesn't matter in your last stitch if you end on a decrease or if you end on a single crochet. We're going to keep decreasing throughout for the next few rows. So it really, and we're not going to do any other pattern, so it really doesn't matter what you end on for the purposes of this. So now I'm going to slip stitch to join. I have a tight gauge, and so sometimes I make it hard on myself. Okay, so for the next row, after the decrease row, after your first decrease row, the next row is just all straight single crochet. So 1 single crochet in each stitch around. And then you'll do another decrease row, and then another straight single crochet row, and 1 last decrease row, and another single crochet row. You can do as many decreases as you like. Just be sure to put in a row in between them that's just straight single crochet without any decreases. Okay, earlier I said to do 3 decrease rows. Actually, you need to do 5 decrease rows in order to have the hat come together enough so that you can stitch it. Otherwise, it'll be too wide, and you'll be pulling that hat in like that, and it'll be bunched up in a bad way. So you need 5 decrease rows, and in between each of those decrease rows you need 1 row of straight single crochet. So once you've got your rows, your decrease rows done, you're going to slip stitch to join. Then we're going to pull up a really really long loop, you want to pull up quite a bit of yarn. I'm pulling up approximately 18 inches of yarn so that I can stitch my hat shut and have plenty of room. Okay, get that out of the way. Sorry, I'm just getting my tapestry needle. I wasn't ready. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sew up this top. And we're going to do it in such a way that we can pull it close like a drawstring. So thread your needle, and anywhere in there, just insert your needle and weave around each post. So weave in between, or weave around underneath each stitch. Weave your needle around each post. I'm not done yet, but you can see that it's starting to pull if I want it to. If I pull that string shut, it will pull the top closed. So I'm almost done here. Find out where my end is. Now this is a child size hat, and this one's not really going to have that much of a slouch to it. It's going to be really cute. It's going to have, sit on top of the head and have a bit of poof to it. If I did one more set of the pattern, added that to the, then it would have been quite the slouch. I would have had a lot of slouch. So now I'm just drawing the top closed, and in the hole that's left, I'm going to drop my needle and pull it through the other side. Working with the hat, working on the inside of the hat, we're just going to sew this shut. And I'm tightening this so that that circle is closed. And I'm going to give it a good 4 or 5 stitches. And I like to knot it as I go, just to have it be extra secure. Because with wear and tear and time and washing and drying, you want to make sure that this is nice and strong. And I'm just going crossways in random, semi-random areas so that I am sure to get it completely covered, and I'm pulling pretty tightly. So now that I've got that close, I'm going to turn it around and just see how it looks. Make sure it looks how I like it to look. And I think it looks fine. And I have a nice long tail left. So I'm just going to start sewing in my ends. And I'm going to do this randomly. I find if I do it randomly, sorry, I just bumped the camera. I find if I do it randomly that the string, the tail, doesn't pull out so easily. I go in different directions. I'm really sewing this one in quite a lot. And again, if you wanted to make more knots to make this even more secure, now would be the time as you sew in these ends, this end. Okay, last one here. Just going to pull that through. Let that be my last one. And then just trim that. So there's that hat. I think it turned out really great. I think it turned out, this is my third hat of this pattern, and I think this one is the cutest I've made so far. I like that when it keeps just getting better and better. And the first two are pretty nice, but this one just turned out even better than I had thought it would. I love it when that happens. Okay, so now I have this tail from, this is the beginning yarn that when we very first started. And because we did the starting foundation single crochet row, when we slip stitch to join, we have this bit here that's not really attached to anything, it's kind of floating. So what we're going to do is just sew that around so that it pulls to the other side. And I'm even going to kind of grab it with my needle here. To force it inside. And I find if I am going one direction and I switch and I go in the perpendicular direction, and then switch again, that yarn is really, it won't tug out. It's really hard to tug out. You have to really want to do it. So we have to really work at it to get that to move. So I'm just going to trim that. Now, if you're like me and you're a perfectionist and you don't like this little lump here, and you don't like that these single crochets are just showing, that's going to frame the face, you could go around and do a border. Just a quick, you could do slip stitches around or single crochet, whatever you wanted to do. I think what I'm going to do is slip stitch around. So I'm going to insert my hook kind of near where that lump is. I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook and pull through a loop. Give myself a nice tail so that I have enough room to sew it in. And I'm going to secure this with one single crochet. And then this is something, I don't know if there's a name for this. This is just something I sort of made up, but it seems to me there should be a name. That I'm sure other people have made it up too. So I don't think I'm the first, but I'm going to do a slip stitch, but before I slip stitch like I normally would, I'm going to yarn over and then insert my hook. Let's see, let's insert it here. And then I'm going to draw that loop, and I'm going to draw it through all of the loops. For some reason, getting started with this yarn, it gets twisted and tangled pretty easily. But once I get working with it, it's fine. Okay, yarn over, go into that stitch, draw through all of my loops. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull it through all of the loops. Yarn over, go into that next stitch, pull it through all of the loops. What I find this does is it cleans up the end, it cleans up the edges without making this flat. Sometimes I like that flat look, but for this I think I want it to pop out a little bit more. Actually, I changed my mind. I'm looking at it and I think it's detracting from the rim, so bear with me here. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to keep it, that slip stitch, and I'm just going to slip stitch around. I do want that one single crochet in there, right there, that one chain to secure it. And now I'm just going to do slip stitches. So pretend I didn't just show you what I did. Because I changed my mind midstream. This is how I come up with things, is I just play around and then get into it and decide, no, that's not what I want to do. So I'm going just through, if the work is facing me this way, I'm just going through these top loops. You can go anywhere you want in this. This is just an edging. So I'm just going to go around and do that. And then I'm going to sew in the end, and my hat will be complete. Thanks so much for watching my first tutorial. Feel free to leave constructive comments, and I will see you back here next time.